Could you tell us a little bit about your personal background, your education, and pre-political endeavors?
Well, I was born and raised here in Penticton. After graduating from Penn High, I went off to UBC like a lot of my classmates, and I got my bachelor's degree there. I went to Memorial University of Newfoundland. I got a master's degree in biology. And then I came back to UBC and I worked there for over 20 years until 1995 when I moved back to the Okanagan and set up a environmental consulting firm, and I've been writing books. I've written a dozen books on British Columbia, its ecology and natural history, and I've been working mainly in the last 10 years. I've been heading up projects that assess the status of bird populations in Canada, and I've been active in volunteer ways as well. I've been one of the founding members of the Okanagan Smokeweed Conservation Alliance. I founded the Meadowlark Festival, and I sit on the board of the Nature Conservancy Canada.
That's neat. So what got you interested in politics?
Well, I think it's important to everyone should be interested in politics, but getting into it's another matter. I'm not getting into politics to further my career or anything. I got in because I thought I could make a difference. I thought my experience and my work background, not only in the Okanagan Valley, but around British Columbia, across Canada, I think I could provide a really valuable perspective for an NDP government.
Why do you think active involvement in democracy is so important, especially for young people?
Well, I think it's important for everyone, and especially for young people, because you have your future ahead of you. You know, what happens now is very important, and I think because of that, young people have a very different perspective on what's important in British Columbia. I think, you know, issues like education and the environment are more on young people's minds than they are on the minds of people my age. And so I think it's important for young people to get out there and make their voices heard.
What do you think would make young people more interested in voting and in politics?
Well, I think it would be obviously more interesting for them if politicians like myself actually talked about issues that were important to you, and not only talked about them but acted on them. And so I think, you know, that's the kind of thing that would engage people. The NDP is actually proposing that young people be able to register to vote when they're 16. They still would have to wait until they're 18 to vote, but I think even just that registering would get them engaged more in the world of politics.
That's interesting. So learning more about your party on a simple ideological basis, could you explain the difference between the NDP and the Liberal Party and the BC First Party?
Well, I think at a fundamental level, the NDP believes that we all have to work together to grow the economy, to create a healthy environment, and that means, you know, government, industry, and people working together. We want to invest in people and in the environment so that the people have good jobs with good pay, and with that would grow the environment. It's quite different from the top-down view, I think, that the Liberal government has. The BC First Party is a very different animal that is involved more in changing the entire system of government.
All right, could you rank these from most important to least important? Economy, education, environment, and healthcare.
I don't think you can rank them at all. They're all important and they're all totally interrelated. I mean, for instance, if you invested more in the economy, or if you invested more in people, gave them good jobs, invested in the environment, you could bring the costs of healthcare down because people would be living healthier, happier lives. You know, and you could work at it from almost any other angle.
All right, could you tell us specifically what an NDP government means for students, those going off to university and those looking for jobs?
Well, for people in high school, we just announced yesterday that we'd be investing $75 million of new money into the school system in British Columbia, so that we would have smaller class sizes and better outcomes there. And for those going on to post-secondary training, we're creating a $100 million needs-based grant program so that everyone would have access to the training they need to get the good jobs that are out there.
All right, thank you. So where will the NDP put its economic focus for the future?
Well,
creating jobs.
Yeah, I think the skills training piece is the most important thing for us now. We hear that there's a big skills shortage in British Columbia and across the country, and we believe that's the way to grow the economy. Again, to invest in young people especially, to make sure that they have the skills they need to really play a proper role in our economy and have a good future.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cannings.
Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you.
Could you tell us a little bit about your personal background, your education, and pre-political endeavors?
You bet. I was born in Edmonton. I grew up in Penticton in Summerland. Graduated from Summerland Secondary. I was a bit of a late bloomer. I ended up going to post-secondary school education. I was fortunate enough to have a part of a year in the Okanagan Valley and the balance of it in Washington State at the University of Eastern Washington. I have a retail background. Our family owned a chain of retail stores in southern British Columbia. And I quickly learned that financial responsibility, it's better that you not be spending more money than what you take in. So that's the background that I brought to my endeavor so far.
What got you interested in politics?
You know, I was involved in many of the community societies, from the Child Development Center, Chamber of Commerce, Crime Stoppers, to name a few. And I learned that it's really important that if you do have ideas and you do have desires to bring them forward, and when it's your community and being involved in the community and being part of the community in it, it's really easy to be outside throwing shots in. What you want to be, in my opinion, is maybe you should be inside trying to help and make those changes that you think should be taking place.
Why do you think active involvement in democracy is important, especially for young people?
You know, to me it's incredibly important. If you take a look around the world today, there are many places where you don't have that choice. And that choice for yourself and for your peers gives you an opportunity to determine the destiny of your community, the province, the country. And that's why I think it's very important that you get involved as quickly and as early as you can.
What do you think would get more young people paying attention to politics?
You know, opportunity and I've actually seen accomplishment. I believe in governance, and governance is, in my way, a much better word than politics. The results and the focuses, and you know, there are opportunities that have been presented in my tenure in Penticton when kids have got involved in their community. One I'll say is the skateboard park. I knew the young lady that was really involved in skateboarding, wanted to get a new park, lobbied the city of Penticton. We were able to provide the land, the province was able to provide additional funding, and it was an accomplishment, and it made a huge difference. When I take a look at what's transpires down on Riverside Park with that skateboard park and the involvement with kids, not only from Penticton but other communities, it actually shows that something can get done. The other example is a swimming pool in Penticton. The city of Penticton was looking at cost reduction measures because we had to. To be very frank, we weren't broke, but we were very challenged with our financial ability. And a young lady from the community got involved in it and explained to council how important those great people that work at the community center as lifeguards were. And it wasn't just about the finances of operation, but we were able to sit down with the union, work through it. It wasn't fun, to be honest, but it was a challenge. But we both rose, both the union, the employees, and the city of Penticton rose to what the community was asking for, and it made a difference. And there's two examples of where two young people got involved and made a huge difference for the future of Penticton.
On a simple ideological basis, could you explain how the Liberal Party differs from the NDP and the BC First Party for students who know little about politics?
Well, No, we're all entitled to our own opinions on that, and you'll hear lots of things coming from both parties. And in my opinion, the Liberal Party is a collection of like-minded individuals that can agree and disagree, but want to see this province have a strong economy on a continuing basis. And I think that's incredibly important. They also want to see it financially and prudently managed for a future and a secure future for all British Columbians on it. The Liberals have a proven track record, and I think that's important to manage the province and to be able to consistently work with the citizens to fulfill the needs. You know, maybe not all the desires, but to be able to fulfill the needs on a balance to make BC one of the best places to live in BC. There's great people that run for all different parties on it. What you have to do is be able to bring those ideas forward, but you want to keep in mind the focus for the community and for the people that you represent.
Rank these in order of most to least important: economy, education, environment, healthcare.
You know, out of all the questions you asked me, this was the most troubling for me, and I'll be very frank. They're all incredibly important, very important to me. But without a strong economy, eventually there isn't going to be anything left to provide what you have mentioned on it. When I take a look at it, the resources, both human and financial, without that ability, there isn't going to be anything else. And their importance in my lifetime and in your lifetime, as far as I'm concerned, they're intricately related and just as important to each one.
Could you tell us about what a Liberal government means for students in high school and students leaving high school?
Well, I can sum it up in one word: opportunity for an incredible future. So each and every one of you will have the opportunity to make this province what it is and what it should be in the future. Someplace that we all want to live, someplace that we all want to work, we want to raise our families and enjoy our future. And the opportunity is ours and yours.
Thank you. Where will the Liberal Party put its economic focus for the future?
You know, economics to me is the opportunity for us to advance and for municipalities and communities to advance. And I have to say, one is, right now we have an opportunity, and it doesn't come along in many lifetimes, and it's the north with the gas. A quick explanation for me is that when you get your tax notice, and you're very lucky yet you haven't got a tax notice for property tax, but there's property and improvements on a tax notice. Property is the land, the improvements is the buildings on. In British Columbia, when you add up on the BC assessment roll, and I don't want to be too complicated here, but if you take a look at all the land and improvements in British Columbia, excluding Crown land, which means the forests and the parks, there's $1 trillion worth of wealth. And that's with a T, 1 trillion, a phenomenal number, and a number that gets bantered around a lot. When you take a look at the opportunity in the north, what we have, at today's prices, there's $1 trillion worth of marketable gas in the ground in the northeast sector. That's equal to every building, every piece of land, of accessible land in the province of British Columbia. When you take a look at it, it's a phenomenal amount of wealth. And that wealth, by controlling the spending and by reducing red tape and skill training, both technical and academic for people like yourself, it will provide a huge future, and it's something that we shouldn't forsake. It's clean energy, it's energy that is being in demand all around the world, but like anything else, when something's in demand, there's people that fill that void quickly, and BC has to act quickly to make sure those resources get to go in the places in the world where we can receive the best dollar for it. So the north is wide open for both jobs and opportunity for this province.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's all the questions.
Well, thank you. I sure appreciate the opportunity, and good luck in your studies, and let's see how this goes, and I look forward to the opportunity of the results of the election.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Good morning, Mr. Maxwell. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's quite early this morning, but
Can you tell us a little bit about your personal background, like education and pre-political endeavors?
well, I'm not really a politician. I'm a citizen, and a business owner, and a mechanic, and I've been in Penticton for 20 years. And I just decided that after I retired, that I finally had to speak up and get involved.
Oh, that's interesting. So then, what exactly got you interested in politics? Just you wanted to be involved in?
My mother is a one of the persons that watches question period, so she's instilled it in me. And she's my basically my campaign manager. She gives me great advice. But I just saw a lot of waste going on, and I don't understand why, so I did some research and decided that I had to get involved, and I found a party that fit my beliefs the best, and went from there.
Why do you think active involvement in democracy is so important, and especially for young people?
Because you people are going to inherit a $50 billion debt. And that boils down to $4,800 every minute. And I apologize to you, because you're gonna pay that off for years and years and years and years. And we have to do something about it. We have to start saying, let's turn things around. Something's not right there. Where's all that waste going? Why are we running in a deficit continually all the time and adding to our debt?
That's a good point. And what do you think could get young people more interested in politics?
Well, that's one, but number two is you're going to inherit our province. So either you listen to us old people right here and not complain, or you can complain and get involved. And there's so many things that pertain to your age group as well as ours, education and trade schools and all those things that you have to be involved in.
On a simple ideological basis, could you explain how your party, BC First Party, differs from, say, the NDP or the Liberal Party?
Yeah, I think we're way far away from their area. Our whole idea is we want to stop party politics.
Okay.
We had to start a party to stop party politics, so. Because we think that there's a lot of waste there, and representation isn't what it should be. But our idea is that we should turn the pyramid around and have the people on the top again, the people are the boss. Every vote in the legislature should be a free and open vote. There's no party politicking and no party lines involved, so if you get elected and you're an NDP or a Liberal or a Conservative right now, you have to listen to the boss, and you have to do what they tell you, or you may get kicked out of that party. If you run under BC First or as an independent, you can vote the way your constituents want you to. And that's what our whole philosophy is based on. So we're trying to open the government up, put the people back on top again, and have them tell the MLA what they want, so that MLA can vote that way, and even what they may not want, but the way that people tell them to.
It's a fascinating concept. Could you rank these in order from most to least important? Economy, like jobs, education, environment, and healthcare.
No, that's impossible to do, because they're all so interrelated. I looked at that question for quite a while, and I tried and I tried. But everything is so interrelated, economy, jobs, what was the other one? Education. Education is so important that it's going to give you the job that you want. So that's another reason to get involved in politics when you're younger. But the whole economy is tied to all four of those things. And no, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question.
Yeah, understandable. And what would a BC First government mean for students in high school and leaving high school?
It would mean that when they start voting, they have a much better representation in government. So they would be the boss instead of the other way around, as it is now, and they would be able to get involved easier. They would be able to set up recalls and referendum to rescind laws much easier than it is now. Because we are the party that started off by rescinding the HST. That's the background of this party, and whether it was good, bad, or middle, the idea that a government brought it in against the wishes of most of the people, that the people actually were able to turn it around and say, we don't want that, and they actually succeeded. We think that process should be a lot easier than it was then, so it happens more often, so students can get involved in that area. So again, if you don't like something, you can actually have some say in how to change it.
Yeah, okay. And where will the BC First Party put its economic focus in the future?
Well, I wrote that down because that's a pretty tough question. And an economic focus, I have that here, excuse me.
No worries.
Renewable energy is really big. Wind, sun, waves. That's really big. Ecotourism is growing all the time, especially in this area, and it's really important. Right now we see the KVR, which brings European tourists here in droves, and we don't get enough publicity over it. It's amazing what it does for us. And also value-added resources. My personal opinion is there should be nothing that leaves our province without some value added being put to it. For example, we should be exporting lumber, not logs. We should be exporting, not exporting ores, but refined minerals. Right now, bulk water leaves our province, and maybe that shouldn't happen either. So everything, crude oil should be refined, gasoline, diesel, and that's what we should be selling. So we can have more jobs, better jobs, in order to keep our province out of that debt we're in now.
Interesting. Well, unfortunately, that's where we have to end. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So how are you today?
I'm doing very good, yeah.
Glad to hear that.
Thank you.
So could you tell us a little bit about your personal background, your pre-political endeavors?
Sure, a little bit of my personal life is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm a dad and husband of my wife, Heather, for 29 years. I have 3 kids, 2 grandkids. My oldest boy is a recording artist named Andrew Judah, and he's kind of indie music. He
Cool.
plays about 20 instruments. His real job is he makes commercials for television commercials, like different things. My daughter used to work for me. She's now going to work at the hospital, and my youngest boy is working as a barista in Coquitlam. That's who I am as a person, which I think, is very important to describe yourself as really who you are, not necessarily what you do, because that's really what people care about more than anything. I mean, pre-political, well, the thing is that I've done a number of things. I've been a real estate agent for 20 years as an occupation. I graduated from UBC School of Business twice. I say that because I gave up my real estate license for a bit, and then I got it back because I went to do some other things, such as go on the mission field, working in Australia for a while amongst the Aborigines, which was very interesting. So I've been in the people business pretty well all my life, and what drives me really is being with people and solving problems and taking care of challenges, if I can put it that way.
So what got you interested in politics?
Well, what got me interested in politics was the coming to the knowledge of the fact that that is how things can get done. I mean, there's many ways you can get things done. Reality is that you can organize yourself and become a part of a group, and and make your point that way. Politics gives you a different level, so to speak, of opportunity. And it's that level of opportunity really that attracted me. And what I say by that is I believe that if good people, which I hope I'm a good person, I believe I'm a good person, but if good people are willing to put themselves out there and willing to, in a sense, sacrifice, who they are or their time and that type of thing, good things can be accomplished. So really it's a desire really to kind of give of myself to the society, because society's been very good to me, Yeah, so that's really what drove me into politics. I'm, kind of a political goof, if I can put it that way. I enjoy watching American politics, national politics, and provincial politics. I'd be honest, I'm not so much into municipal politics. It's a little bit different. It's more bylaws and building schemes and things like that. It's very important, but it has less impact on the social side of society.
All right. Why do you think active involvement in democracy is important, especially for young people?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and thanks for asking it. I believe it's important because, young people so many times don't believe that they can make a difference. And what they need to realize is that they are not just our future, they are society now as well. And so the voice of youth is so important. I mean, we've seen that in social media, how active it can be, and the trends that take place, and just the skill set that the youth have when it comes to the computer age in which we live in. It's astounding. you know. And so when you look at young people and their role in democracy and their role in the political scene, you know, I believe it's very important that they are proactive in all aspects. One would be groups like we talked about a little bit earlier that you're involved with. It would also mean getting involved with the different political parties that they might be attracted to, and you know, it would also include just finding out what those groups stand for, like whether it's the Conservatives, the BC Liberals, or the NDP, or otherwise, and knowing what they stand for, and then, you know, realizing, is that what I want to emphasize my energy into? You know,
Mhm.
and as they do that, I really believe they can make a difference. Some of the most inspiring individuals that I know are young people, and you know, so I really value the opinions of young people, and I think society does as a whole, and I think young people need to realize my voice does matter, and so I need to give it out there.
How do you think we can get young people believing that my voice does matter, get them more interested in democracy? How can we put that out there?
I think by being genuine, you know, by being proactive as well, you know, by understanding the issues that are important to you. You know, when you begin to add to your enthusiasm, skill set, and knowledge, you know, then us older folks, so to speak, start to realize, you know what, they have valid points. And as you continue just to do that, it makes all the difference in the world.
Excellent.
Yeah.
For the young people watching this today who don't know too much about the political parties, could you explain to us on an ideological basis how the Conservative Party differs from the other parties that we see?
Sure. Well, you know, when I was a little bit younger, I thought perhaps that the world would be best suited to what I call a socialist ideology, which is more akin to the NDP. And the reason I kind of thought that way for a brief period of time was because it looked like they were going to offer me all the perks and the different things that I thought I would need, you know. Then you look at the Liberal model, and so the NDP really, you know, as far as I can see, they don't really understand the burden of taxes and the importance of, you know, spending the public money the way that they should. I get the fact that they want to take care of individuals. I get the fact that they believe that hospitals are important, because all of these things are important. But there really needs to be that balance. And so I would say that, you know, the NDP philosophy is maybe too far left to the social side, because, you know, all of the things are important, but somehow they have to be paid for. Okay. Then when you look at the Liberal Party, well, the reality is that what I see there is they're somewhere in the middle. But they really don't care necessarily about social issues as much as the NDP, and they don't care about fiscal responsibility as much as the Conservatives do. So they sort of find themselves somewhere in the middle, if I could put it that way. But I would like to describe that more as I would say that the NDP don't necessarily really understand how the world works. Forgive me. The Liberals don't really care how it works, okay? And so then you look at the Conservatives, as I see it, you know, people always accuse the Conservatives of being a bunch of gray-haired old men and women, you know. And I kind of laugh at that because it's stereotypically wrong. So many of my colleagues are so young, they're, you know, what I'll call maybe upstart.com type people, heavy into social media. And the reality is that we realize that there needs to be a fiscal responsibility. And, you know, if there is a leaning towards in conservatism, it would be the fact that we recognize you only have so much money, and you have to live within your means. You have to spend that money wisely. You have to educate. We strongly believe that education is very, very, very important, because if we have an educated society, then we have a society that can succeed. Okay, if we have a healthy society, we have a society that is happy. You know, so these things are all very important. But the reality is you have to pay for them sometime. So just to kind of boil that down into a sentence, you know, the NDP might go ahead and spend more money than they have. We've seen locally that the BC Liberals have done the exact same thing. And the Conservatives would say, well, we get that all those things are important, but we've been spending so much money on these projects over the past that now we're spending more money on the interest than we are on what we should be spending on the programs. And so that's really kind of in a nutshell the difference, and it's not much of a nutshell, or if it is, it's a big nutshell, but that's kind of the way we see it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, a more challenging question. Could
Sure.
you rank from order most important to least important
Yeah.
the education,
Mm-hmm.
environment, economy, and healthcare?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I really believe the economy is the most important, okay? Because if you don't have an economic tax base, if you don't have jobs, if you don't have opportunities for the educated to go to or the healthy to go to, then really, you don't have much, okay? So the economy really is the responsibility of the government to make sure that it is functioning correctly. Not to provide the jobs, but to provide the atmosphere, to provide the policies, to provide the opportunities through, tax breaks and so on, so that the economy can be strong. Then, believe it or not, I'm not going to go with a 2 or a 3. I'm going to go with a 2A and a 2B, okay, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
And I would put education as being second. Because really an investment in education is an investment in society as a whole. Education, keeps people healthy. When I feel good about myself, when I'm achieving, when I'm learning, when I'm studying, when I'm doing something productive on this planet, okay, I'm more prone to be a healthy person as a whole because I feel good about myself. There's an old saying that says a merry heart does good like a medicine, So, I would say there are 2A and 2B. Healthcare is definitely important. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But the reality is that, if as a society would be putting more emphasis on, being better people and being more educated and being more proactive, we really wouldn't have the healthcare crisis that we have. But I would think that we need to get healthcare taken care of as well. But again, interest on the debt, in BC, keeps us from having strong healthcare. And then finally, the environment. And don't get me wrong, I believe the environment is very, very, very important, and all conservatives do as well. There always, though, needs to be that balance. The thing is that you can't get oil, so to speak, to a gas station unless you have a pipe to put it through or a truck to drive it there with. And so along with the production that's necessary for, this society to succeed as a whole, we have to steward the environment. We have to be aware of the fact of the impact that we're having on environment. But I would say, well, the conservatives are so heavy into, big business and oil and all that kind of stuff. And the reality is that, they may look at us and say there's this imbalance towards the environment. But the truth is that, even a lot of the students here in grade 12 drove to school, okay? They heated their house up. And so we simply have to recognize we can't live without all these things that come with progress and so on. So somehow, in a sense, we have to steward them. In reality, I'm just going to put this out there and say that conservatives are a lot more green than most people realize. We really are. We don't want to destroy the environment. I mean, it's especially, well, I shouldn't say especially, anywhere in British Columbia. It's such a beautiful province. And so I think that the environment's very important as well. But I would put it fourth on my list because, you've asked me to rank them. So that's
All right,
what I
well,
did.
that's a difficult question.
Yeah, no problem.
Speaking of students,
Mhm.
what does a conservative government mean for students, especially those moving on from high school, looking for jobs, going to university, things like that?
Yeah, well, conservative government means that we're going to take a look at the economy as a whole, okay? And we're going to make sure that the money that is being spent in government, okay, has been streamlined. It's called spending smart. We believe that, if we can take and get rid of the waste inside of the budget that we presently have in British Columbia, we can take much more resources and put them towards education and towards the students, after school, so to speak. A recent study was done in Australia, and the Prime Minister of Australia was here a short while ago. And in Australia, they put a huge emphasis on education. And they discovered that when they did that shortly thereafter, the economy and the whole society of Australia was prospering and doing a whole lot better. So, we believe that it is our responsibility as stewards of the resource, not masters of the resource, but stewards of the resource we know as British Columbia, that we need to spend it wisely so that your generation, you know, which is the generation of now, not just the future, has plenty of opportunities. Students shouldn't have to graduate and wonder where they're going to go. They should know, you know what, my economy, my local area is providing opportunity here. Far too many jump on a plane and they go to Fort McMurray. I'm a real estate agent by trade, and believe it or not, I just sold a house to a 24-year-old, and the house cost $625,000. It's the first house he bought. When you think of it, that's crazy. But he has a very high-paying job in the oil sector. And the reality is that, you know, that's what British Columbia needs, is high-paying jobs here in this province and plenty of opportunity. Not just talk about that, but actual government policy that's going to change the way we do school. It's going to change the way we do business so that you guys no longer have to move to Alberta or other areas in order to be educated. So that's what the Conservative government is going to do.
Wow, you really did discuss the economy a lot. Anything else you'd like to add about the Conservatives' economic focus for the future?
You know, that really pretty well is it. I mean, spending smart, being stronger. I mean, you know, a lot of people are misled, so to speak, by the media. They don't even believe that Conservatives exist. And it's our job really to get the word out there. When the NDP lost power in the 90s, they left the province with a deficit of $33 billion. And I say that again, $33 billion. The Liberal government came along, and it's sure they've added some infrastructure and things like that. But the reality is they have brought the deficit to $69 billion. So they've added $36 billion to the deficit. If you can imagine all of the interest that we're paying on that money, it's crazy. How many hospitals in Penticton could have been built with all of the interest money that's being spent? And so when you look at the economy, we believe that it's been mismanaged. And the reality is that we've really got to get people in that care about this province from their heart and get back to the basics and say, you know, enough is enough. Our youth, our pensioners, our society needs hospitals and so on. And so we've got to get it back under control. And, you know, believe it or not, we believe we can actually do that with less taxes. It's just spending smarter. It's like if you have $1 and you go down to the 24/7 store, the 7-Eleven, if I could put it that way, you can blow it on whatever you want, or you can be a little bit wiser and spend it wiser. But you still only have $1.
All right. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.